Hello, welcome to this 101 training on data protection law. In our second module, we're going to provide an overview of the European General Data Protection Regulation, the GDPR, and its core principles.
So, what can you expect to take away after this session? By the end of today, you should be able to understand the purpose of the GDPR, understand when the GDPR applies, and understand the core principles of the law.
Some of you may have read a privacy notice or seen the GDPR grabbing the headlines due to large fines being issued against organisations for not complying. It's hard to avoid the GDPR, but what exactly is it?
Well, in Module 1 we covered the history of the GDPR and how it upgraded the 1995 Data Protection Directive. So in May 2018, the GDPR kicked in. Its mission? To ensure greater protections for people's data and to give people more rights to control how their data is used.
The GDPR applies to residents of the 27 EU member states. In addition to the EU countries, the GDPR also extends to countries in the European Economic Area. This includes Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway. Even though the GDPR is an EU regulation, its reach is global, affecting businesses and organisations worldwide that deal with the personal data of individuals located in the EU, even if they are not EU citizens. Specifically, the GDPR applies to organisations with establishments in the EU, like an office or a branch, but it also applies to organisations outside the EU who are targeting individuals with their goods and services or monitoring their behaviour. For example, does the organisation have a local website domain, or accept payment in euros, or conduct marketing activities in the EU? Does the organisation track or monitor individuals based in the EU, for example through their online behaviour to target them with ads? If so, then the GDPR applies. So what are the key requirements of the law? The specific requirements that apply will vary depending on whether an organisation is acting as a controller or processor. We'll explain these roles in Module 4. In the meantime, it's important to understand that companies processing personal data as controllers must follow the GDPR's main data protection principles. Data processors also have obligations, but these are more limited. More on this in Module 4.
So let's dive into the GDPR's first principle. Processing should be lawful, fair, and transparent. Basically, you can't just collect or use personal data without a valid legal basis, like consent, for example. You must choose one of the available legal bases under the GDPR and be able to justify your choice. Fairness is about handling personal data in ways that people would reasonably expect and avoiding any harmful, covert, or otherwise creepy usage. Think twice before using personal data. For example, if there's any chance you might mislead people, that's a no-go. Whether you get data directly from people or indirectly, like from data brokers or publicly available data, transparency is key. You must tell people in clear, plain language what data you're collecting, how it's used, and the rights available to them, with few exceptions. If your processing activities are not explained in your privacy policy, this needs to be fixed.
The GDPR's second principle is purpose limitation. This is all about ensuring you only collect data for specific, clear, and legit reasons. Changing your plans, want to use data for something new or different, you'll need to first tell people, and in some cases, you may need to get their consent.
The GDPR's third principle is data minimization. You must only process the minimum of personal data you need to achieve your goal. More isn't always better, especially with personal data. If the data is not directly tied to the processing purpose, leave it out. For example, if you want to create an email newsletter distribution list, you should only be collecting what is needed to send out the newsletters and not be using the opportunity to collect other information, such as the individual's postal address. If you could use de-identified or anonymous data, then you shouldn't use personal data at all to achieve your purpose. Like survey engagement analytics, if all you need to do is know that a unique user filled out your form, just use a number or code, not their name. It's about getting the job done without collecting unnecessary personal data.
The GDPR's fourth principle is accuracy. This one's all about making sure the data you collect isn't misleading, inaccurate, or outdated. Always double check where your data's coming from and keep an eye on its accuracy. Ask yourself, could this be challenged? Is it potentially misleading? Information also changes. What's true today might not be tomorrow. Keeping your data accurate involves ensuring that it's periodically updated. For example, by asking individuals to confirm if the data, like their contact details, remains up to date.
The GDPR's fifth principle is storage limitation. Think of it like a best before date for personal data. You shouldn't hang on to data for longer than you need it, and you should be able to justify how long you're keeping it for. Just like you wouldn't keep milk in the fridge forever, don't let personal data linger in your systems without a good reason. Set limits and stick to them. Avoid keeping data indefinitely. Keep it as long as it serves its purpose, and no more.
The GDPR's sixth principle is integrity and confidentiality, also known as the security principle. This is about ensuring that appropriate security measures are in place to protect the personal data held.
Excited to learn more? Stay tuned, as in Module 3 we'll start to explore some of the foundational definitions and concepts under the GDPR. We look forward to seeing you there.